What's up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Alright, y'all. It looks like Walmart Spark app. Y'all doing something a little funny. I say this because some people are getting some money sent to them as adjustments. I'm a tad bit late to the party because I actually didn't get an adjustment. So I have been seeing some posts in a few of my groups that I'm in on Reddit, Facebook, stuff like that, and people are showing like, oh yeah, I got a couple $100s from Spark, I get this, I get that, whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, did something happen? I didn't see any new articles come out. I didn't see an email from Spark, nothing like that. I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it's just a regional thing. So then I started to see some videos some people were talking about. I'm like, okay, I clearly missed something. And like I said, I didn't get an adjustment. I didn't get anything. So I'm like completely out of the loop. Come to find out, my husband's like, oh yeah, I got an adjustment. I got an email from Spark. I'm like, you ain't tell me? Why you ain't tell me? So I got his email here. He forwarded me the email so I can go ahead and show you guys. We're gonna go ahead and discuss thoughts on this, okay? So Spark sent out this email here, right? And I'm not gonna go ahead and read everything. Everything's on the screen if you guys want to read it. But they say, based on a review of our records, additional disbursements related to tips from earlier periods, including interest, will be dispersed to you through your primary earnings method. Then they went ahead and talked about the tipping adjustment. Adjustments related to tips from earlier periods may relate to different reasons depending on your impacted trips, including cases where customers were not charged for those tips. And they mentioned how each adjustment will include interest, and within 24 hours you're going to go ahead and see that, and the adjustments will be on your 1099 documents and all that, blah 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 blah. That's it. That's the email. So my thoughts on this, y'all. Okay, first of all, what prompted this? What happened? Was there some type of suit like on the back end that we don't know about? Because I went ahead and researched everything. The last thing that I saw, the last lawsuit that's public record that I saw, was one in relation to the branch account for the payouts for the drivers and stuff, right? And that got dropped in, I think they said in May. So I'm like, I'm just kind of lost. Like, what prompted this? Okay, I have a feeling that they're doing this to cover themselves so they don't get a lawsuit down the line. Now, I've only been on Spark for, what, 2 years now? Yeah, coming up on 2 years, because I remember I got on it the end of 2023. So I'm still fairly new. I know there's a lot of people that have probably been on here for longer, but I don't know, has this happened before where, I mean, I've gotten like adjustments, but most of it, at least what I thought, was coming from either return trips, which now that I think about it, I never got the adjustment for the return trip that I did last time on Spark, but that's besides the point. You know, whether it's from returns or weight pay, whatever it may be, you know, I've gotten adjustments before, but they never really explained thoroughly as to like what it was for. And they kind of did the same thing here. They're saying like it's a tip adjustment, but one, you're not explaining how you came up with this number, because like I said, I didn't get anything. My husband got $2 and some change. I'm hearing some people got a couple $100. Some folks, some screenshots, people showing that they got $1,000, $2,000. I'm not sure how true those are, but it's all over the place. You either got nothing or you got a lot, okay? But there's no explanation as far as how these numbers were calculated. And that's an issue there, because how do we know that this money that you're giving out is actually accurate? Regardless of that, I'm pretty sure they're like, you know, let's just go ahead and give this out, let's do this, whatever, just so we don't end up like DoorDash, for instance. DoorDash has been sued countless of times, and they're probably going to continue to be sued. Like, they literally have been caught taking the tips from the customers and putting it as the base pay to be like, all right, that's what we're paying you as base. and the remaining just goes back to their pockets. They've been found to do this a number of times. So it wouldn't be a surprise that Spark is doing the same thing. And like I said, they're just trying to do this to save face, cover themselves, so they don't get a suit later on down the line, which is going to happen eventually. I wholeheartedly believe that they're going to have a suit with something similar down the line, but only time will tell. But like I said, there's no explanation as far as how they came up with these numbers. And this is where the issue of the lack of transparency comes into play. Like, I was listening into Pedro's live stream, I forget how long ago, it was a couple days ago, and they were talking about transparency, legislation, stuff like that. And I'm listening to everybody, and I'm like, okay, everybody's making some good points. You know, they don't want legislation, they don't want politicians to go ahead and get into the gig economy and make a mess of it. You know, completely understand that. But at what point are you like, okay, enough is enough, something needs to be done for the worker? One thing that I hear some people talk about is transparency. They could care less about it. Transparency isn't just a thing of like, oh, I want to know what the customer is ordering, or I want to know this and this detail. You know, it goes beyond just knowing things about the order. I want transparency in the sense of like, okay, where is my money going? Okay, as a customer and as a driver, because as a customer, you know, you're paying a service fee, a delivery fee, a tip, whatever other type of fee, and you're just paying it to be like, oh, I paid this and I'm getting my stuff at my door. How much of that actually goes to the driver, and how much of that is going to the company as profits? Should it be, how do they calculate it? You know, is it a percentage of this and that goes to the company and then this goes to the driver? It's like they can make up their own formula and then not present it to you, and you're just pretty much just gonna take whatever. That doesn't sit right with me, because then you end up with situations like this, situations like what happened with DoorDash, when, you know, there was no transparency as far as where the money is going. You just take their word for it. Oh, I'm paying for a service, but they're stealing the tips. They're bundling orders to lower the pay. You know, they're doing all of this skimming off the top, and you're left with pennies on a dollar. There's absolutely no type of structure, nothing that says you can't do this. And even if there was something in place, because regular companies with W-2 employees, they get away with stuff too. There's always going to be loopholes. It just doesn't sit right with me to have a complete free-for-all where we end up with situations like this. We're getting bonus money with little to no explanation as to where this came from. You know, do we even know that the numbers are accurate? Like, are we supposed to get more, or what? Like, there's no type, you just have to take the company's word for it. And I'm definitely not going to go ahead and do that. Okay. You know, as much as I dislike politicians, they usually make a mess of things. They don't know how a lot of everyday people, how they operate. They don't know how a lot of everyday things, how they move. Like, I completely understand that. But like I said, at some point, there has to be some form of accountability with these companies. You know, they're literally just saying, here, take this money so you can shut up and be happy. You ain't got to worry about nothing. I ain't get nothing. I'm not complaining that I didn't get anything. You know, if I would have got $2, I would have like, they gave me $2. Like I said, that's what my husband got. But how come he got $2? I got nothing. Some people got 200. Some people got 800. Where is the explanation of how this was breaking down? And if you want to compare myself and my husband, I've done more orders than him, and he ended up getting $2. Like I said, I know it's $2, but still, it's just the principle of it. How was somebody that was doing less orders able to get more than me? And I didn't get anything, like I said. So was it order to order? Was it a specific time frame? There's no breakdown. There's no explanation, no transparency there. So like, that's why I say I'm not really pro legislation per se. I don't trust politicians, but at the end of the day, like I said, we can't just keep having this free for all, bro. We legit can't. Like, whether it's a union, I know people are like, we don't want a union, we don't want this, you know. And I don't know what the solution is. I really don't know what the solution is, but something has to happen at some point. You know, there was this one article I had talked about. It was like probably a month ago or so. This is when I was really talking about like legislation and, you know, getting policies in place. And the one line that stuck out to me was just the fact that laws are, I can't remember it word for word, but they were talking about how the laws that we have in place, they aren't set in stone. They can be revamped, they can be rewritten, and new laws can come into play. Living in an era where probably over 50% of the workforce has some form of independent work under their belt, whether it's full-time, part-time, whatever. You would think that with that many people in a specific industry, or I would say not even industry, but a specific classification, that there would be more guidelines that have to be followed by the companies to make sure the worker is not getting screwed over. Again, not expecting them to do 100% the right thing, but at least something to say, okay, we can't allow companies to do this. You can't withhold tips and say that it's base pay and then decide that, oh, you know what? Sorry, we miscalculated our books. Let's go ahead and pay out something so we don't get sued. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. Clearly, you had something in place to go ahead and skim money off the top so you can have more profits. It wasn't until somebody brought it to your attention, oh crap, we in the black about 2-3 million more than we should. It's not gonna look good on the books. We need to go ahead and distribute that money out to peoples. That's how I see how it happened. Yeah, I'm just saying, okay, because it was real hush hush. This was real hush hush, and like I said, there really isn't much further explanation beyond that. So like, we can't have things like this happen on a regular and just think that it's normal, it's okay. Like I said, I get with legislation, they might do more harm than good. And even if something does get in check, you know, there's gonna be not necessarily a domino effect, but it's gonna be a cause and an effect type of deal. Fix one thing, cause another issue. There's gonna be like a catch to certain things. But again, free for all versus some form of structure, I mean, we don't know what that looks like, but I feel like we need to at least consider having something in place. It doesn't have to be fully like a W-2, but there has to be something. I'm just saying, okay? Maybe it's me coming from an employee mentality because I still do have a W-2. You know, I do this every now and then. And I can only imagine how it is for y'all full-timers. If y'all, anybody here that's watching that does this full-time, I can only imagine how much of a headache, how much of a struggle this can be. Because like I said, I might log on 2 times a week, maybe, max, sometimes. It's a struggle to find something that is worth your time, worth the pay. You know, it's tough. I get it. And I just would like to be treated as a human being. Is that too much to ask for? You know, maybe I'm reaching, but hey, I gotta eat. We all gotta eat. It's way too much money out here for people to be hoarding everything for themselves, okay? It may not be realistic to some folks. You know, I might be too empathetic. You know, I'm thinking too much with emotions. I don't know. But it just doesn't sit right with me. But that's just me, like I said. So, but that's enough of yapping. Like I said, let me know if you guys did get an adjustment, how much, all that fun stuff. And let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is the start of something with Spark? You know, do you think there's going to be a lawsuit down the line, or what's going to happen? So, and let me know what you guys think about legislation and just holding these companies accountable. So just let me know in the comments. Now, before I let you guys go, I have to remind you guys, leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.